Hi, this is Vicki and welcome to another version of It's About Time, where I talk about the articles that are in Time magazine, the magazine that I so much love to read. I didn't have a broadcast last week because it was a holiday, and this week's issue was a double issue from September 7th and September 14th. And today we're going to start out with the very first article. And it involves something that happened in Holland. There were some people that were on, I think it was a high-speed train to Paris that overcame a terrorist, and they were given the Legion of Honor, 3 Americans and a Briton, for helping to keep a terrorist from hurting a lot of other people. Former President Jimmy Carter is stating, "I've had a wonderful life." He's facing his trip to heaven, actually. He's a Christian man. He's had cancer. It's moved to his brain, and he's handling it so wonderfully. He was a great president, not the best president we ever had, but he was a moral man, and I appreciated all of the things that he tried to accomplish. We had a good week and bad week. Turkey sales are up. The supplies grew more than expected, even after there was bird flu that killed 9 million turkeys. That's good news for Thanksgiving that's coming up. The bad news this week is, once again, there is a lot of bacteria being found in beef in the stores. I think it's very important that you check the dates and make sure that you're buying beef that's fresh, possibly local, and possibly ones that are grain-fed. Well, I should say not grain-fed, but pasture-fed. On this page, we're talking about the Chinese again, and this time it's in regard to their stocks. They did some little finagling that caused the stocks to drop. That kind of scared the world for a while. But this piece says the Chinese currently have a debt to gross domestic product ratio of about 300%, which is 3 times that of America. So why are we worried? The country's banking sector, mostly state-owned, is ring-fenced from the rest of the world. And that means bad debt won't ricochet from Iceland to Iowa and back, as it did in the 2008 financial crisis. Disasters. A 400 square mile group of wildfires was named the largest in Washington State's history. Global warming is a fact, and those in Washington who deny it are, again, as I said last time, illogical. This is something small, but it has to do with Japan's government scrapping their policy about giving a silver cup to those who reach the age of 100. There are so many Japanese reaching the age of 100 that the finances of the country cannot afford to do this anymore. So it was costing $2 million a year, and they are going to change the product that they put into these cups. Europe is struggling with lone wolf terrorists, and there are 3 main reasons why. There is extreme Islamist influence that crosses the borders. There are porous borders in Europe, so this makes it more easier for them to get from one place to the other, and they have more access to guns. Terrorists are a rising problem. It's nothing new again, but it's important that we support other countries who are fighting them just like we are. Over here it says cities are becoming less livable. Sorry about that. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit. Honolulu, USA is one of them. I'm wondering what's happening there that's making it less livable. There's been murder spikes. Homicides in 2015 are up in these cities: Baltimore, New York, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Washington, and Hartford, Connecticut. That sounds strange. They went from 19 to 21. That's a pretty small state, but I guess if you put it in perspective with the other states, that's a lot. Coming after years of national decline, the rise in deadly violence has experts struggling to come up with its explanation. They call it the Ferguson effect, and based on my broadcast a couple of weeks ago, you probably know how I feel about that. We're back to the Black Lives Matter issue. As far as transportation, Americans are not happy with car prices, and I guess that includes the rich also. According to the American Consumer Satisfaction Index, 4,300 consumers blame record recalls and high prices because the average price of a new car is $33,000. In Detroit, which needs to be refurbished, revitalized, a person could buy probably 4 houses there. Come to Detroit. Don't buy a new car. Come here and buy a few homes and help us rise up from the ashes of the economic crisis that hit this country so many years ago. Two people died of interest. One was Lang Thirith, if I am pronouncing that correctly. She was 83, and she was the wife or the first lady of the Khmer Rouge. I wonder what she knew about what he was doing, and if you look up online his horrific rule, it boggles my mind to think that she might have known about the things he was doing and possibly condoned them. Jacob Bekenstein, 68, he was a physicist who made great advances in the science of black holes. Jet fuel prices have fallen 50%. A portion of those savings gets passed on to consumers. I'm wondering if that's true, because have you looked at air prices lately? I have, because I'm going to be graduating from college next year. And I may or may not go to my college graduation, but I have looked at the airfares, and I believe that when jet fuel prices are lowered, just like automobile prices lower, at the beginning of the place where they are from, those should be passed on to consumers. But most of the time, somewhere along the line, hands get in there and grab the profit. On a small note, drones are advancing into this world more and more and more. They were used in warfare, but now they're being used all over America. 650 sightings of drones this year, just as of August 9th. That's up from 238 for the whole year of 2014. Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States, is pondering about running for the presidency for 2016. He's batting it around. No one really knows what he's going to do. I'm still for Hillary, but I have to say that my second choice would be this man who has an integrity that is comparable to that of our current president, Barack Obama. Scott Walker is contemplating, or he is running for president on the Republican side. He's imitating some of Donald Trump's tactics. He says Republicans have been in charge of both houses of Congress since January, and there still isn't a bill on the president's desk to repeal Obamacare. I don't want to see that repealed, but I think this Republican is fed up with people just sitting around doing nothing. He also said he would support revising the 14th Amendment to the Constitution to scale back birthright citizenship, a radical idea reintroduced into the political bloodstream by Trump. There are a lot of Mexican people living in this country, Hispanics, and there has just all of a sudden over the years become this terrible attitude about getting rid of them. I have many Hispanic friends, and I'm telling you, they have offered great, great things to this country, and I don't think that people should be taken away from this country simply because somebody changed the way the law was. Because once again, just like I said before, if laws are passed to separate some parts of people from America, the next time it happens, it might be you. My relatives were not originally from this country. I just wanted you to see this picture because these are Syrian refugees and children being pushed back across the border by soldiers, not being allowed to escape al-Bashar's, well, it is Bashar al-Assad and ISIS's attacks on them. These are children, people, and they're not being treated right. We need to save the children no matter where they are. This article says billions have been spent to prevent the next Katrina, but it's not enough. Once again, there are shortcuts happening. Engineering is not looking properly at the aspects of what this type of catastrophic hurricane, or whatever you want to call it, would happen. And people keep moving to the coast. They keep moving to the places where these horrible storms happen. And I'm wondering, what's wrong with their thinking? A lot of it is motivated by wealth and prestige. But honestly, I don't mind being poor, but if I was wealthy, the last place I'd want to be is somewhere where weather or other people would want to attack me. The International, or I should say the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change projects that seas could rise as much as 30 more inches by 2100 if the world is unable to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. China's the problem, and we are too. We should be converting to solar panels, every one of us, and get away from the coal. I'm sorry for the riches that some people have gained from coal, but they need to move away from that and get their money somewhere else. Properly shielding New Orleans or Miami or New York would cost far more than we've proved willing to pay. But failing to do so will mean entrusting the fate of our greatest cities to the luck of a storm, as the odds get worse with each passing year. There's a little in the nutshell article that says why we work. And it says the most valuable employees, this man wrote in his book, are those who work because they want to do well, not to check boxes. Great teachers don't teach just to take a test. Great doctors don't just order profitable procedures. We need great teachers and we need great doctors that aren't just looking at the bottom line. I think it's Barry Schwartz who's writing this book, or who has written it. There's a sky pool possibly coming in London that's going to cross between two buildings, open right up in the air. That's kind of interesting. Pepsi's 3D printed potato chips. Sorry, I don't want to eat those because they're not natural. And that's something that I've been reading about lately, that we are into so many foods that have GMOs, which are genetically modified, and there's no trusted evidence that they have been tested properly for human consumption, and we may be setting ourselves up for extreme disease in the future for our children and grandchildren. There's an Airbus bullet plane. A patent has been awarded so the passengers can go through the air at 1,300 miles per hour. No, thank you. How to make schools better for kids. I'm just going to read these briefly. You can figure them out on your own. Ditch the traditional homework. What kids should be doing is taking about 30 minutes an evening and reading. This would help them more than any homework could ever do. Make recess mandatory. And when those teachers are out on the playground, and I've seen them standing around talking about their day or holding their little phone devices, those teachers should be actively involved in encouraging those children to play and not allowing them to sit around in little groups and just stand or sit doing nothing. Screen kids for mental illness. This is a big one for me. There are so many children with psychological issues. I remember, and it's in my book, that's at My Turn on the Merry-Go-Round, that you can find at Kindle. I had come from my summer between junior and senior high, where my boyfriend had drowned, and I was already a psychological mess because of past abuse. But I was sitting in the office, on the floor, leaning against the wall, crying my eyes out. I was a senior in high school, and the reason I was crying was because I was supposed to have Spanish, which was a continuation of the Spanish I'd had the other years, but for some reason I had been put into French. Now, for somebody else, that might have been just an easy thing to overcome. But because I had problems, mental illness problems, I was sitting on the floor, devastated. Did anyone help me? No. What happened over the years that teachers did not recognize? The mental illness that I possessed, in the way that I dealt with other children, in the way that I often isolated myself. Teachers need to be trained to recognize this, and there should be ways to evaluate it. Children being molested at home. These things could be discovered if we had teachers that cared. But I have been in classrooms, especially one of my younger son many years ago, where the teacher ridiculed and criticized one of the children in her class so openly that that child cried, and this was not appropriate. Prioritize diversity. Black Lives Matter. You'll hear me say it so many times, but so do all the other races and religions that attend our schools today. And we need to learn to accept one another. There is a picture online at Facebook that says, the only time that colors should be separated is in the laundry. Turn discipline into dialogue. Offices remove problematic kids instead of addressing what made them misbehave in the first place. Let students customize their curriculums. They're smart. They might know more about what would help them learn than you and I do. Minecraft is a great example because a lot of children are really into that, and they are learning so much about engineering and construction. And I have some very smart grandchildren, 6 of them and one on the way, possibly 2 if it's twins. They're very intelligent, and they might have something to interject into the classroom. Start classes after 8:30 a.m. That way, Most children will get at least 8 hours of sleep each night. Sleep is so important. I spent a lot of time on that, but it's so important for the future of America. Here we are back at the Clinton scandal, and I wanted to read something to you. None of the emails was marked classified at the time, say the Inspector General of the State Department and the intelligence community, and Clinton aides say there is no evidence that she knowingly mishandled secrets. Absent evidence she knowingly mishandled secrets, for Clinton the penalty is likely to be political. What's new? I'm sorry. Life support. This is an article about doctors and residents. The residency program originally started because doctors who were going on with their education would actually live at the hospital so that they could be available to take care of patients. Doctors have so much that they have to do, hours after hours after hours, and sometimes put in 24 hours to 36 hours in surgeries or whatever before they're allowed to rest. This is unacceptable. We need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need more, I think they're called nurse practitioners. Because here's the statistics that you may not know. As many as 400 doctors, the equivalent of 2 to 3 graduating medical school classes, die by suicide every year, according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. There are major medical errors that happen because of fatigue. We need to be aware of this, and we need to pray for our physicians, and we need to support programs that will give them the opportunities to rest that they so need. The doctors that are helping us become better and live longer should not die because they feel like their life is hopeless. This makes me sad, but I believe there are solutions. Cruz is also running for president. He's on the Republican side, and he's on the very, very far right. He believes he's on the furthest right, possibly falling off the boat. He believes an uncompromising style will lure disaffected conservatives back to the polls in 2016. And although I would not vote for him, I like some of his policies. He made a statement that the senators, as bad as you think it is, it's worse, he tells voters. They stand for nothing. He also stated, it's all a reflection of Cruz's abiding belief that the most powerful force in politics is fidelity to principle. When he talks and he takes on an issue, says the campaign manager Joe Rowe, we're not backing up. I respect that, even though I am not for his party or for his politics. I do respect the fact that he strongly believes in what he stands for. We all should. This is Putin, ruler of Egypt. What am I saying? He's a ruler of Russia, and he is a very dangerous man. He's trying to bring Russia back into the Cold War. He has eliminated the people around him that wanted to make concessions and draw Russia into the world and the European community, And it says here that many others have been discarded from Putin's staff in the same way, especially the more politically liberal members of the ruling class, the ones who wanted to stop Russia from tumbling backward into the Cold War with the West. There's an atmosphere of paranoia and aggression. Sometimes the old instincts kick in, says one of Putin's senior counselors, referring to the Cold War backgrounds of the officials who now dominate the Kremlin. I'd say there is the danger of going backward. The problem is Putin has put himself in the circle of a group of men who outwardly they encourage him, they talk to him, but he keeps everything compartmentalized so that he is the only person who has all of the information. This is a dangerous thing. And it has happened in the world before. Dirty diamonds. Remember the era of the blood diamonds? In some ways it's still going on. There are people who can't go to school, young children, because they have to be in the mines to be able to support their families. And this is because there are still rules being broken about mining diamonds being controlled. The hard truth is that years after the term blood diamond breached the public consciousness, there is almost no way to know for sure that you're buying a diamond without blood on it. I'm not into jewelry, so that has not been a problem for me. But it says here, which is good, millennial customers or consumers are looking for more than the 4 C's. Classic cut, carat, clarity, and color. It's wonderful to know that they want a guarantee that it is ethical. They want to know about labor practices. They want to know that the communities have benefited from the diamonds they are mining, which is not always the case. If we withdraw from places like the Congo, the children go hungry. It's a catch-22 situation, but it needs more government oversight. Some people hate that word, but it does need more oversight by, I think they're called NGOs, and government, so that children will not have to be in the mines for their families to be able to help them eat. Marvel is winning new fans by bringing diversity to their comic books. Nowhere but in America in the 21st century could this happen. Thor has become a girl. That might emasculate some men, but it's the truth. Captain Marvel has become a girl. And Marvel Comics content director Sana Amanat, if I'm pronouncing that right, led the push to put a Muslim teenager in the role of Ms. Marvel. Now, isn't that great? Some of you would not think that's great, but I do. That's Steve Colbert, and he started taking over the late night show. But that has already happened last week, so I'm not going to cover that. Many of you might have watched his show. I like Stephen Colbert. I think he's on the right too, but I'll tell you what, he says a lot of right things. So I like him, whether I always agree with him or not. There are 3 books out. To be black in America is to navigate an existence where one is at once and perhaps perpetually seen and unseen, valued and devalued by a society that has historically questioned the worth of those it once enslaved for profit. This painful dichotomy has been a recurring narrative in the canon of African American literature, both fiction and nonfiction. There are 3 people who have written books to disclose this information and to show the lives of blacks in this country and how these effects have affected them. Margot Jefferson, Dr. Damon Tweedy, and Ta-Nehisi Coates examine the impact of race on our expectations and experiences. And in doing so, they challenge us all as well. I had to talk about art for a minute because it just always boggles my mind. This goat, the she-goat, is one of Picasso's most realistic sculptures, but its anatomy is strictly irregular. To piece together the plaster original, later casted in bronze, the artist scavenged a palm frond to serve as its forehead and a woven basket for its belly. The udder he made by attaching 2 clay cups. Couldn't you and I do that and sell it for $1 million? What is wrong with artist collectors? I think they have decided what's important, what's perfect, what's beautiful, and what is not. And I have seen artwork by my grandchildren that far outshines the stuff in many museums. Take, for instance, this. No offense to the person, Stella. Well, actually, it's decoration. It's a lot of square boxes drawn smaller and smaller and smaller with different colors. I'm sorry, but you and I could do that and make $1 million. So what's wrong with the artist community? I just don't get it. Jackson Pollock is the worst in the world as far as I'm concerned. I have seen people stand before his paintings in movies and other genre and just be in awe of what he created. And when I used to work at an apartment complex, after I had painted a room, I could look at the canvas on the floor and call it a Jackson Pollock. You see what you want to see, and if somebody who has 50 million diamond rings on their fingers that probably are blood diamonds, and clothes on them that some stylist has said is worth $1 million, which I just think is ridiculous, tells you that a painting is great and that you should pay thousands of dollars for it, you need to think again. The best artwork you will ever find comes from the hands of the children at your local school. Buy that and frame it. Trust me, it'll mean more. This is a budding artist, a budding R&B artist. They say he's the second coming of Michael Jackson. And what I have to say is, I don't think so. Michael Jackson was one of a kind, and I'm not putting this young man down. I'm sure his music is fine for this generation. But don't ever compare anybody to Michael Jackson. There was no other, and there will be no other. Case closed. And one of the things that bothers me about music today is that in so many ways it all sounds the same. And I have told people this before. When artists sound like other artists, there's nothing new. Where's the new? Where are the Michael Jacksons? Where are the people that are bringing something new to the table? Even sitting in church today and in the past, I have heard Christian artists just imitating the music and the style of the world music that they saw outside of the church. We need creativity. We need something new. Why doesn't someone step up and do something different? Although Eminem's lyrics are often very vulgar, He did step up and he did something new. I'm challenging the youth of America. Create something new. Even if people around you don't like it, do it for yourself. It might catch on. There are two venues on Broadway, I should say two new acts on Broadway that are remakes. Misery, starring Bruce Willis, and Fiddler on the Roof. Those should be interesting because they will have content that's familiar to us. And they were great stories in the beginning. Hopefully this hasn't been too long, but I end with the Mindy Kaling, the 9 questions. There's usually a place at the end of Time magazine where they ask someone questions, and she's the creator and star of the Mindy Project, and she talks about her new book, Why Not Me? Her dream guest star and the importance of 2 minutes. The thing that caught me as special about this was she was a writer on The Office, which was a very popular show for many people. And it's my understanding, although estranged from my niece, that my niece Sarah King, who might have married and has a new last name now, was a part of this production for many years. And I'm very proud of her that she accomplished so much through a show that was so popular. And with that, I end this week's edition of It's About Time, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll return next week because it will be a single issue, and I'll be back here probably on Sunday to talk to you again. In the meantime, get your kids some sleep. Make sure that schools are teaching them what they need to learn. Have a great day.